sommelier certification. Is that how you
Oh,
say
good.
it?
We're recording it,
Yeah,
so you can send it to him after. Okay.
perfect.
So, and real quick, what's your guys' product type specialty?
Multifamily,
All right. And you guys are located
Virginia,
in Virginia. Awesome.
Virginia, and North Carolina.
In North Carolina. Sweet. All right. All right. It's going to be rapid fire. And so, but we're recording this. All right. And I'll probably pause too and kind of have you guys interact as we go along here. But I just want to get and give you the full presentation from the client's perspective. And then I'll work in the commercial real estate brokerage way to grow your business using this strategy and really add more value to clients. All right. So before we get started, anything else that you want to make sure I cover during this presentation?
Yes. So we have two specific clients that are interested in the product. Actually, two separate transactions with multiple clients that are interested in the product that we've already started pitching.
Mhm.
Due to a podcast I listened to that David sent me. I don't know if that was your podcast, Brett, or if that was someone else's. But one question that on one of the transactions, it's a partnership of some older gentlemen in their early 80s. Their question is, how does this get inherited by the estate? What are the implications, if there are any? And then also, when they do put their money into the trust, when they pull out either income that the assets in that trust are producing, or equity out of the trust, what are the fees? What are the taxes associated? How does pulling money out while they're still alive work?
Yep. So inheritance, how do you pass to your kids? And then how does pulling money out, how is it taxed when you pull it out? Yep. We'll cover all that in the presentation. All right. Are we ready?
Yes.
All right, this is my client Dave, and Dave sold and saved $1.1 million. He saved his 1031 exchange, a 128 unit apartment complex in Georgia, Athens, Georgia, if you guys know that spot. And the presentation is going to be centered around three secrets: an optimal timing, transformational exit plan, and how I helped Dave achieve all of this, and how you guys can help your clients do the same. So this is me. I'm the founder of Capital Gains Tax Solutions. Legal disclaimer: I'm not a CPA nor a tax attorney. I'm a commercial real estate broker by trade. And we highly encourage everyone to seek independent and tax and legal advice from their advisors. But really, they just bring them in and they get with our team, our tax attorney, and they kind of go through it and get their blessing. Is usually how it goes. So the perfect storm, this is the big demographic shift that's going on right now, guys. And it's according to the American Bankers Association, there's about 17 to $20 trillion of assets that's going to pass from one generation to the next in the next 20 years. And this is known, again, as the largest wealth transfer in the history of the planet. There's about 77 million baby boomers in the US alone, and about every day, about 10,000 are returning 65. And these are probably your prime clients right now, right? That you're helping, and they've owned real estate for 10, 20, 30 years. And on top of that, this highly appreciation of their multifamily properties and others, they're faced with taxation that is going up and interest rates that are lower. And all right, so it's literally just sky high for value right now. And in fact, your interest rates are hovering near 40-year lows. And so real estate is appreciated a great deal. Couple that with 1031 timelines that are very restrictive, as you know, and also potentially even be taking away here with the new Biden administration. It makes finding a quality deal very challenging with the low inventory and high cap rates, and everyone wants to be in multifamily, right? So then what happens? The property owners feel trapped, they feel stuck, and a lot of them won't sell or can't sell, and you don't get a listing and you don't get a commission. And so they're very reluctant to sell because of their tax, which is 33 to 50%, including depreciation recapture, depending on what state they live in, right? And depending how long they've owned their real estate for. Of course, you know, a multifamily property depreciates at 27 and a half years. And so if they've owned it for more than that, they likely have zero, or if they've done any cost segregation, they also have a lower depreciation. So we'll talk more about that in a minute. But every single day, high net worth individuals, your potential clients, they sell primary homes, they sell businesses, they sell stock, they sell multifamily property, and they pay hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in capital gains tax when they don't have to. Now, most of your clients will do a 1031 exchange, which is cool if they'll do it. But a lot of these other parts of their investments do not qualify for a 1031, such as a business, such as stock, and such as a primary home. So Dave, my client, was in your position just about a year and a half ago now. And he was sitting down learning about the deferred sales trust for the first time. He's bought and sold hundreds of properties. He used to be a broker when he first started out, and then he syndicated deals, and then he owned a bunch of his own stuff. And he's done 1031 exchanges forever. And so he thought that was the only way. But guess what? He's in his 60s. He wants to spend time with his grandkids. He wants to pursue other things, and he's made his wealth, and he's looking to shift. And the biggest thing was he didn't want to start over in this market with a new 1031 property. And his 1031 was failing. And he decided for the first time to get rid of the toilets, the trash, the liability, and then trade them for time, travel, liquidity, diversification, and retirement. However, he didn't want to do a TIC or a Delaware and give up all control to a third party in probably 7 to 10 years, which I know you guys probably know about the Delawares. I've also done those, but he wanted to maintain the opportunity to buy at a lower priced market, which leads me to the first story. In 2006, I call this the Monday morning quarterback. My business partner's client, he sold his real estate for $20 million in Minnesota. He's worth a couple $100 million. And he sold at the peak. He didn't see anything around that made any sense, but he thought something was going to shift, and he was smart because he got out right at the right time. And 5 years later, he bought back that same property through his deferred sales trust, all tax deferred, at 60 cents on the dollar. So he sold high and he bought low using the deferred sales trust, not using a 1031. And that's the part where you go, huh? And that's what changes everything. And as soon as you get that, everything will change for you. And so that's the premise of this. And so let's keep going here. So who is this for? It's for any clients that you have, or maybe it's yourself, that own a highly appreciated business, investment real estate, primary home, or other assets subject to capital gains tax. It could be artwork, it could be collectibles, it could be Bitcoin, it could be stock. Doesn't matter. The deferred sales trust works for it. However, we have some minimums. $1 million net is our new minimum. And it needs to have at least a gain of about 500,000. Okay. So if it hits those two things, and that's net of all closing costs on those assets, then we're good to go. Otherwise, it's too small. So what is a deferred sales trust? It's simply an installment sale. You guys know it maybe as a land contract or a seller carryback. Okay. But we're using a third party unrelated trustee. That's me. That's our company, to buy the asset from your client and immediately sell it to the cash buyer you have lined up. And when we do it in that order, guess what? It can be a zero tax event for your client. And why would they need one for their wealth plan? Okay. Well, I want you to think about Blockbuster and Netflix throughout this entire presentation. And I propose to you that the old way of doing things is the 1031. Now, I know we were taught on about day 3 in Marcus and Millichap training that the 1031 is the end all be all. And granted, it is an amazing tool when you can find a deal that makes sense. Okay. But when it's a highly priced marketplace and you don't have a lot of time to identify and there's multiple competing offers, guess what? It's not your friend. In fact, it's the old way of doing things. It's the Blockbuster. It oftentimes, yeah.
Can I back you up for a second?
Sure.
So the installment sale, that's a huge component. So this is I wanted to dig a little bit further into that. So we have a client. They own a $7.5 million property. They owe zero on it. They've owned it forever. They fully depreciated the property. They don't, again, they bought it. I think they developed it themselves actually like 40 years ago. We have a buyer lined up, let's say, which would come very quickly on this particular asset. They go to sell. We line up the buyer. All right. How many days before settlement do we engage you?
We've done deals in 72 hours. We've done deals in 14 days, 7 days.
So
No one likes to work on under fire drill, right? Ideally, people learning about stuff the first time, they're so tied to the Blockbuster days, and their CPAs and tax attorneys they only know Blockbuster. They don't know Netflix, and they just they're just married to this. So commercial real estate is like a religion, and one of the doctrines is the 1031. And as soon as you realize that there's another doctrine called 453, which is an installment sale method that you can use, everything changes. So I'm going to get through that. Trust me, just stick with me. And I promise I'm going to answer your question at the very end. And is that Alti or is that Theo? I'm not sure.
Alti.
I'll tell you. Yeah. I'm going to break it down for you. Okay. So
Okay.
just stay with me here.
Okay.
So Blockbuster, right? 45 days to identify. Do you remember going, I don't know, Altai, do you remember going on a Friday night and you're excited
Of
about that
course.
movie, right? And then you
Oh
show
yeah.
up and the
Video
movie,
games and movies.
what's that?
Video games and movies.
Okay. All right.
When I was going to Blockbuster, I was about like maybe 9, 10 years old.
Okay. Yeah.
12. That's when it
Yeah.
stopped.
Yeah, there we go, right? And so, but remember when you saw it and you're walking down the aisle and you're about to grab it, right? But then
Mhm.
like someone like 3 steps ahead of you steps ahead of you and grabs it, and you're like, oh, now I got
Yep.
to get something else. My whole weekend's not as good as what could have been. But even if you
Yep.
got the movie, you have to return it within 3 days, and then if you don't return it and rewind it, you get a penalty, and then it can be very frustrating, right? Whereas
Yep.
Netflix, it's never sold out. It's always there. Now there's some monthly ongoing stuff, and which ours has, but you never have to worry about timing. You can buy whenever you want. You can diversify. You can be liquid. You can be out of debt. There's so many things about Netflix or about the Deferred Sales Trust versus the old 1031 that took me a while to overcome these false beliefs. But I'm going to hopefully break these for you guys in the next few minutes. All right. So first one is the timing deadline. A lot of your clients are tired of the sprinting around. And guess what? You wouldn't want to sprint around either if you had millions of dollars of tax and you had to make a quick decision, right? But at the same time, you go, well, I get a commission, and I get that because I've been in your guys' shoes, right? And it makes sense to do more deals, but at a certain point, they just won't transact. Perhaps like your $7 million client right now. And so the biggest thing is that 45 days to identify, 180 days to close. So our parents taught us to sell high and buy low. They didn't teach us to sell high and buy higher 180 days later on a property I probably really didn't want to pay for at a 4.5, 5 cap with rents that have been pushed through the roof, with keeping my old depreciation schedule, which comes to the second point. The number one reason, or the top three, perhaps, I think in my book, to own real estate, investment real estate, is for the depreciation to offset the income, right?
Yep.
Because you have a more of a zero tax event on any given year. However, if you've owned it for 27 and a half years or more, you have no depreciation. If they were to sell at 7 million and do an exact exchange at 7 million, guess what? They have the old depreciation schedule. They're not that incentivized to sell, right? And do an exchange. However, if they use the deferred sales trust and buy that same asset, they get a full depreciation schedule by partnering with the trust. Why? Because we're not doing a 1031. We're not doing a Blockbuster. We're doing a Netflix. Wow. You're saying I get a full depreciation schedule, Brett, if I use the trust and partner with it to buy versus doing a 1031? Yes. Wow. That is like Netflix versus Blockbuster. Plus, hopefully they buy that asset at a lower price, meaning they do like the Monday morning quarterback. They sell high. Now it might take a year or two to buy that next asset, but guess what? That's in their best interest because they bought low. They, instead of buying that $10 million deal, they bought it at 9. They saved $1 million. Plus they got a full depreciation schedule. In the meantime, the funds are sitting on the sideline, all tax deferred, liquid, diversified investment grade securities with a financial advisor who, by the way, you're probably going to want to partner with in Virginia, the best one. And he's going to start sending you more clients. Why? Because you helped him grow his business using the Deferred Sales Trust. So, which leads into number 3, the entity must move. You guys might have partners that are looking to go, and there's 4 partners, but guess what? One doesn't want to sell, one wants to sell, one wants to 1031, one doesn't care. And so they're at a stalemate because the whole entity, generally speaking, for a 1031 must move, meaning you must get 100% buy-in. Well, not with the deferred sales trust. With the deferred sales trust, we can make individual deferred sales trusts for each of the partners or just 2 of the partners of the 4, and each can go their separate ways, meaning they can still defer their tax and break up the partnership. So that's pretty awesome. And the last thing with the 1031 is they don't have diversification. Now more than ever, your baby boomer clients want diversification, they want liquidity, and they want to be out of debt. Okay. They don't want to go through the '08 potential crash again. They don't want to just make all this wealth just to have to fight for it with the banks or renegotiate. They can get out. They can get out of their debt and they can get on the sidelines. Okay. So we like to say, don't be this guy. I don't know if you know Joe, but don't buy high. We want you to buy low. All right. So quick background. I started out at Marcus and Millichap in 2006. And you guys know all about that. So I don't need to go into that. But I've done countless 1031s, Delaware Statutory Trust, Deferred Sales Trust. I'm still a multifamily broker here in Sacramento. Hey, let's do a deal together. I still sell it for my clients. I love selling real estate. And I love multifamily. I also invest personally in it. I also help syndicate and raise funds for deals. I love senior housing, mobile home parks, and multifamily are my 3 favorite. But I also been featured on a bunch of podcasts. You can check all that out. This is my favorite one, though. This is Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank, if you recognize him. And I was on his podcast and he was on mine, and we're hopefully making a deal with Kevin where I'm going to be a part of his dream team, and that'll change everything forever. But we'll see, depending on what his tax people say about
And
our
when we use
strategy.
your company and we plug clients into your company, when do we get a shot on your podcast?
Yeah, you guys connect with me on a strategic alliance, and basically just say you're going to use me for every deal moving forward, which I think you're going to want it because we're going to align really well. Then you guys jump on and we highlight and we market you. We have a coaching program for $500, and that gets you the copy, it gets you the funnel, it gets you the podcast, it gets the webinar and coaching. So we'll
Okay.
talk about that at the very end. All right, but it wasn't always me, guys. I wasn't always this rock star Leonardo DiCaprio making cold calls, closing deals. I was one of the guys in the back scratching my head, right? And it was 2006, and I was brand new in the business. I played basketball in college. My mentor and cousin, he's like a brother of mine. He was at Marcus and Millichap. He's like, Brett, you got to check this thing out. And I was like, oh, I'll check it out. That sounds kind of cool. If you like it, I might like it. And I fell in love with the business. But as you know, it's zero benefits, it's zero salary, it's sink or swim, it's Navy SEAL training, and it's amazing. And like I started to learn and grow. But guess what? Just as I started to get some momentum in the business, the entire market fell apart, right? And that was 2008. So I went from barely making any money, right? Being like a scared, I think I was what, 20, 21, 22, I don't know, right around there, 23-year-old. I was like scared. I was newly married now, a couple years go in, baby at home. People tell me, go get a real job, Brett. I remember breaking down in my mentor's office. I had 4 mentors within about 2 years at Marcus. One got fired for not submitting an offer. The other one, we worked together for about a year and a half, and we kind of butted heads and we kind of went separate ways. The next one was amazing, but he was so good that he got promoted to assistant manager. And then, then my manager, the full manager, was fired. I went through a lot of folks in like a short period of time, and I was trying to make it in the business. I'm like, I break down one day. I never cry. I'm like, I'm so frustrated because another deal fell apart, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? All my friends are telling me, go get a real job, go get a W-2 job. I'm like, I love the job. I love what I'm doing. I love the career. This is not just a job. I love the competition. I love the underwriting. I love the challenge. But this is an actual deal. I did 7 units in Marysville, California, outside of SAC. It's about $18,000 a unit. So after the house split with Marcus, I was like, in fact, I think this was it was $1,900, right? It was bad. You know, I couldn't really
Minimum wage deal.
Yeah, it was tough, right? But I still love the business. So I did what every good or every good entrepreneur does, or every commercial real estate broker who wants to make it in the business. I said, I have to win. I have to figure it out. So I got a side hustle at Cheesecake Factory. So by night, I've been making cold calls. Okay. I've been working around 50 hours a week. And then another 20 hours a week on the weekends and at night, I'd be at Cheesecake Factory. And
Today,
so
the version of Cheesecake Factory is Uber.
there it is, right? Yeah, the Uber hustle, right? So this is my actual manager here on the bottom right. He's Kerry. He's smiling. He was amazing. I come in, right? All decked out in my suit. He goes, give me your degrees. I have 2 degrees and a minor. I'm working at Marcus and Millichap, really successful. He's like, Brett, if I hire you and you close a deal in 3 months, I don't want to put training into you. You need to give me 2 years. And I said, I'll give you 2 years. And here's why. I got a baby at home, and I love commercial real estate, but no matter how many deals I close or don't close, I'll give you 2 years. So fortunately, 2 years and 1 day passed, and I was able to walk away and retire from the cheesecake, I call it. But literally, I'd be wearing the same tie, guys. You see this guy in the background? That's not me smiling with the blue tie, but I would have the same tie on, right? And I would just switch out of I felt like Superman or Clark Kent. I just switch out and switch out. One time, you guys will laugh at this. There was a potential client I've been cold calling for his, I think it was a $3 or $5 million deal. And he's getting the restaurant, and I had to like switch into the other room because I didn't want to go in there and have him see me working there. That's how embarrassed I was, right? To be doing this thing. But it was humbling, right? And it made me clarify what I wanted in my career. As well, I had to think outside the box. So my clients were also going through that challenge, right? They were losing. Some of them lost half of their wealth. Some of them were losing everything. Sacramento is one of the hardest hit cities in the nation. It's a big boom and bust type of place, okay? Because it's kind of a secondary marketplace versus like the San Franciscos or the LAs or the San Diegos. So they're going through this struggle. So I'm trying to negotiate with banks with them. I'm trying to just survive on my own. My manager at the time from Marcus and Millichap, his name was Bob Hicks. He brings in my partner, whose name is Bob Binkley, and we start chatting about the Deferred Sales Trust. And I sat in the room with Marcus and Millichap with 30 agents, and I started learning about this. And I'm going, too good to be true. What you're telling me, all of these things that just happened for my clients, they could have prevented. They could have got on the sidelines. There's no way. But I had to figure out a way to survive, and I wanted to separate myself. So I was open-minded enough to consider it. So I started to learn a little bit more. I started to send him referrals. I started to use it as my number one interest generator. I started to land meetings. I started to win more listings. Fast forward, I got 5 kids now. My wife and I married about 11 years, and our oldest is 10 now. And one of our dreams was to keep her home full time to raise our kids. And I've been able to do that. And now I speak all over, mostly on Zoom now, but I go and I train M&M offices, Colliers, Keller Williams, and I just train them on how to do this. My biggest passion, though, is just helping the brokers add value, think outside the box, grow their business, and be able to survive in a thing that I love. So that's the background. So after 10 years, guys, of learning the hard way how to do this, I want to teach you the easy way, and I want to try to download my secrets as much as I can in the next 30 minutes or so. Okay, so are you ready?
Let's do it.
Thinking that is yes. Okay, cool. So if you've been struggling, this is probably why. The perfect storm. Clients want a different solution than 1031. And by the way, it's not your fault. Your CPA didn't tell you about this. I also say it's the 1031 exchange companies don't want you to know about this. Why? Because a lot of them want to keep brokers and keep their clients in just the 1031. I call it the hamster wheel, right? And again, I get it. I want to make a commission too, right? But at the same time, you're losing business if you're not seeing the Deferred Sales Trust, right? And so this is the hard way to do things. I say the 1031, the blockbuster way, right? You got to hire a broker. Hopefully you guys are still getting 6% commissions and not getting talked down to 4 or 3. But you hire a broker, 5 to 6% commission, closing costs, 0.5%, hire attorneys to review documents, hire 1031 qualified intermediary, $750, hire attorney to draft new LLC, identify 3 properties within 45 days, close in 180 days. It builds the pressure. You got to apply and obtain the loan. You know, Freddie, Fannie are requiring 12-month reserves now. That's becoming more challenging. You got to buy the property. Hopefully you didn't overpay for it. You got to take on more debt than you want it to. You're feeling more pressure. Your total upfront cost on an average commercial deal could be hundreds of thousands of dollars, plus 6 months of your time and energy to sell your property and buy another property. That's why they hire us to help them do all of this. And this is what they've been used to doing with the blockbuster, right? Plus, hire new management, new leases, new utilities, new laws, new collections, new evictions. The point of all of this is it's really endless. It's endless. And as soon as they know there's a solution, their jaw will drop and they'll say, wow, you're looking out for my best interest. I'm going to send you some referrals and I'm going to sell more of my deals that otherwise wouldn't have sold. Okay. So the key here is helping them build what's called an optimal timing wealth plan. And the key is what I like to say, there's 3 secrets to this whole thing. And the goal is to make it transformational for your client. And the secret number 1 is selling and deferring hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in capital gains tax. How to legally break free from capital gains tax and find freedom to buy and sell your business or property without ever worrying about a 1031 exchange ever again. Secret number 2, optimal timing transformational wealth plan cloning. How to clone a proven wealth plan with capital gains tax solutions in less than 5 hours and have more time, energy, and debt freedom without giving up control or protection of your cash. And secret number 3, I call it my number 1 wealth building hack, how to get your deferred sales trust to work in your favor and become an investment rather than an expense. Okay. So let's focus on secret number 1, which is essentially eliminating the need for the 1031 exchange. So this is Joe. Meet Joe. He wants to sell his real estate property that's worth $7 million. It's fully depreciated, but he feels trapped by the 30 to 50% capital gains tax and the 1031 restrictions. It hurts to overpay. He's been there before. He's seen his friends do it. He gets a black eye. So he's frustrated. He also wants to retire, maybe not even be a landlord anymore, be out of debt and have passive income stream. He does not want to 1031 and repeat with the next property. And so what's step number 1 to helping them with the deferred sales trust? It's simple. Determine their capital gains tax liability. So Alti, you said 7 million fully depreciated. I like to use around 40%. All right. So that's just a rough number. It could be less, could be a little more. So they're looking at 2.8 million. So first we're going to determine that. And that's their biggest reason why they're not selling just about every single deal. And then you're going to ask them to envision their ideal wealth plan. And more than that, their ideal time and energy plan. Where do you want to spend the next 1, 5, 10 years? What does it look like if you didn't have to own real estate anymore? What does it look like if you could buy real estate whenever you wanted to? What does it look like to be able to sit on the sidelines, all tax deferred, and help them envision that? And then simply put a line down the piece of a paper and say, let's compare two strategies, the 1031 or the DST. And again, not a Delaware, which is just another form of a 1031, the Deferred Sales Trust. And we're going to start checking off the boxes. Do you want to be out of debt? Yes. Do you want to be tax deferred? Yes. Do you want to be able to buy real estate whenever you want? Yes. Do you want a brand new depreciation schedule when you buy it? Yes. Do you want to be able to put it into multiple asset classes, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, private real estate or passive real estate? Yes. Do you want to put it into hard money lending potentially? Yes. And then the 1031, tax deferral. Yep, it does that. Out of debt? Nope, not necessarily if you have to replace it. Optimal timing? Nope. New depreciation schedule? Nope. Diversification? Nope. Same asset class. And so as you help them just check off the box, it becomes crystal clear. But then the next thing is they're going to want to talk with somebody. So then we're going to put them in touch with our clients directly and have them talk with someone who has successfully used the Deferred Sales Trust, which leads into step number 4 is just that you guys sell, list the property and fund, and then we'd fund the Deferred Sales Trust. It's TD Ameritrade typically, and they have 24/7 access to view the funds, and it's there sitting there, okay? And it's earning interest based upon the investments it's made into. Or you guys might syndicate your own deals and say, hey, Brett, well, can I go buy a 300 unit apartment complex, help them sell their 7 million, and then they can use a big chunk of that to help syndicate a deal? The answer is absolutely. They have to keep 20% in something like stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, but let's say 5 of that 7 million can be used, and you guys can all of a sudden start to branch out and syndicate deals, which you might already be doing. Are you guys already doing that?
Why do they have to keep 20% of their trust in stocks?
Because we need liquidity. So we need liquidity.
Okay.
That's the answer. So we used to have clients who went 100% into a deal and they'd run out of
Could you be
money.
cash in the trust?
Yeah. So like imagine there's 7 million in the trust.
Yeah.
We used to allow all 7 million to go into one real estate asset, all tax deferred, right? But what we found is they would run out, or they need an improvement and they have a big expense and they'd run out of reserves. And then all of a sudden they're not servicing the trust. They're not able to pay the fees to us. They're not able to pay for the tax return. It becomes a domino effect. It's the same reason a bank would say, hey, Alti or Theo or David, I'll loan you this money, but you need to keep some reserves out of our account. So it's still their money. It's still earning interest. We just don't want the trust to have too much pressure on one single asset. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense, man.
Okay. And it also helps them to get a loan too, by the way. Banks want to see liquidity. So when they see this thing has liquidity, it's going to help them qualify for a loan. So it's actually not a bad thing at all. All right. So this is Dave, right? So Dave sold again for 7.6 million. He paid off he had $4.5 million of debt. Okay. And so he got rid of all the debt. He put about 3.1 million into the trust. And he did exactly that. He put 2 million immediately with a hard money lending. He doesn't like the stock market. He's not a stock market guy. Most of your clients, and guess what? I'm not a stock market guy either. Okay. And this is the beauty where the biggest false belief is you're thinking, oh, I'm going to sell. They're going to just put it in the stock market and they're never going to go back. No. Most of them don't want to be in the stock market. It's all time high, right? It's crazy. We make our money in cash flow producing real estate. However, there's a time and place to sell and sit on the sidelines. And by sitting on the sidelines, you can put it into hard money lending. So we use a group called Praxis Capital, and they've been doing it for 30 years. And Dave put 2 million with them for their hard money lending fund. It's all real estate funding. So you're still in real estate. You're just lending in the fund. Okay. And they paid about 6%.
Lend to themselves.
Yeah, they could also use it as their own lending business. They just can't lend it to themselves or their family for personal property, like a primary home or like a boat or something like that.
But I could, let's say that I sold, I could lend it to myself to go after another acquisition.
So you could partner with the trust to go buy that deal, or you could lend it to other people as a form of your business. And I'm going to talk about the other stuff in a minute on how we do that. But this is what Dave does. So Dave can use the funds to buy an asset of his own by partnering with it. He could use the assets to do his own lending business, but he did it with somebody else. Okay. He could put it in stocks and bonds and mutual funds. It's like a Swiss Army knife. But there's some nuances. He can't borrow against the trust to buy an asset because that's taxable, but he can JV partner and direct the funds to an LLC to buy it. And I'll walk through that here in a minute. But this is the key. This is Dave. I had him on my podcast. He's on YouTube. You can search his name and my name, and you can hear him tell his whole story. Okay. So let's talk about how this works, and let's give you an example now. And now, Alti, we're going to use
Alti, by the way.
Alti. Sorry, Alti.
You're good. You're good.
Alti.
Like you're tied.
Like you're tied. Yeah, I'm going to put it on there. I'm a little tie there. Alti. All right. I promise I'll get that right. I got 5 kids and I forget their names, so don't take offense, Alti. So, okay, so we got a $7 million asset, okay? And we said we had a 0 basis, right? And we're going to use that number of about 2.8 million of liability, okay? That's just an estimate, all right? Okay, so if the client does nothing, they're going to pay $2.8 million of tax, which is not acceptable. They want to defer it. So how does this whole thing work? All right, so these are the clients, and what's the client's first name?
Don.
Don. Okay, so this is Don. Okay, this is Don, and Don is smiling and happy because they just learned about the Deferred Sales Trust, and they have a buyer they want to sell it to, and you guys have them lined up for $7 million. But Alti, guess what? If the $7 million is paid directly to the client, how much actual receipt did they receive? 7 million. You see that? If they paid it directly. I'm using this arrow over here.
Yep.
I can't hear you if you're talking. Alta, you there?
Yep.
Okay. Do you see the 7 million there?
Yeah.
Okay. So that would trigger this 2.8 million. Do you see how that would do that? Because they received all 7 million in their hands if they did it that way?
Yep.
Okay. So, but what if they did a seller carryback? What if they carried back paper for the trust, and instead they took 100% financing? So they took a promissory note for 7 million. So if they received a 0 down payment, how much actual receipt did they receive if they received 0?
0.
Okay. So how much tax do you owe on 0 today?
0.
You got it. So if they took a promissory note, they carried back 100% seller financing. Guess what? They're in it. This is all deferred. This 2.8 million is deferred. Do you see how that works?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is all we're going to do. We're going to have this trust. This is third party unrelated trustee. This is me. We're going to have this set up before close of escrow, and we'll call it the Virginia Deferred Sales Trust. Okay. It only does business with your client, but it's going to buy it for 7 million. And guess what? It's going to sell it for 7 million. And this cash buyer, by the way, they can get a loan. Doesn't matter. We just tell them to come with the cash. They're going to deposit the 7 million into the trust. So the trust bought it for 7 million. David, are you ready? Bought it for 7 million, sold it for 7 million. So if you bought and sold for the same price, David, what's the gain?
0.
You got it. How much tax does the trust owe on 0?
0.
You got it. Okay. So now 7 million is sitting in the trust from the cash buyer. And what did the seller get for that? What did Don get for that? He got a promissory note for 7 million. He carried back 100% financing. The smoke clears. The buyer takes the property. He's gone. And the 7 million is sitting in the trust. So I'm going to pause there and make sure you guys got this and ask me any questions. And I'll also run through it one more time. So make sure you really got it. Okay. Any questions here so far?
I do. So the seller finance note that the trust is basically financing, or that the cash buyer is allowing the trust to finance through a seller finance note, right?
Correct.
All right. So basically the cash buyer is the borrower or the lender in that case.
The cash buyer is the buyer. Yeah, is the buyer ultimately. And the
Yep.
ultimate seller is the trust, but it's like a simultaneous close. So the trust bought it from Don and immediately turned around and sold it to the cash buyer.
Okay.
Okay. So
Now the
there's
buyer
basically
is
two
the
transactions.
borrower.
Yeah.
So the buyer is the borrower.
The cash buyer right here is the ultimate purchaser of the property. The borrower is the trust. So the trust,
Okay.
the trust is asking Don, would you finance this new trust for you 100% financing? Yeah.
Okay. Now the note that's held between the two of them,
Mhm.
what does that note say? Is it like, how long is that note for? What is the term?
Great
What are the
question.
rate? What's
Yeah.
the interest rate? Is there amortization?
Yep. Great question. So most of our notes are structured as 8% interest compounding net of all fees over a 10-year period of time. Not guaranteed, just depends on how the investments perform. And every 10 years, guess what? You can renew for 10 years, renew for 10 years, and then you can pass it into your living trust to your kids. So this is your big living trust right here. And this promissory note, we'll call it DST right here. We'll call it the DST note. It's a promissory note. It's inside of the living trust along with your other real estate deals. And you have your kids. So you have 4 kids. And let's say at 8% on 7 million, let's just use a rough number. Most of our clients will take 6% interest and leave the other 2% to compound. It's about 420,000 at 6%. You could split that 420, between the 4 kids right when you pass. So they're 10-year notes that you can renew for every 10 years, keep renewing. And then when you pass away, it goes to your spouse. And then when your spouse passes away, it can go into your living trust. And then from your living trust, your kids can step into your shoes.
Why don't you just lend it at like a 0% interest rate?
Well, we need to make it commercially reasonable, right? And we need to, that's why we use 10-year notes, and we need an 8%. And also, by the way, it's based upon their risk tolerance for Don if he's married his wife. They're going to fill out what's called a risk tolerance questionnaire. And this is all mathematical. When they fill out this risk tolerance questionnaire, it's going to ask them stuff like their liquidity needs, their investment needs, their income needs. And that score will determine an interest rate. Most of them are pegged at 8%. And so they're going to want to get a return on their 7 million, right? That's also why they wouldn't want 0%. However, they don't have to take any payments. Like if they're really wealthy, that's the cool part. They can let this 8% just compound on top of the 7 million every year.
What if has anyone done like 4 or 3?
If they're really ultra conservative, honestly, most of my clients come in right at 8 or 7, but if they feel like the market's really high, we'll be conservative for a few years, if that makes sense. Like the funds don't move unless you sign for it. So, or unless Don signs for it, right? They don't get invested until Don signs for it. Don is the chairman of the bank.
Living trust, Don can never take money out of.
Well, the living trust, remember why you have a living trust. You want to pass your assets to your kids and avoid probate.
Yep.
Right. So it's going what your wishes are. So you're going to put the promissory note inside of that. So I'm the little trustee of the DST. And
but could he ever spend that? Like if he ever wanted to go and spend, I don't know, $100,000 on a car.
Yeah, no, we can just have a distribution out. So let's say, year 1, they want to pull $1 million out. Then we just have $1 million distribution, which leads into your second question. How is it taxed? Well, if it was principal balance, it'd be capital gains tax in that given year. But had we earned some interest, let's say we earned on 7 million, we earned 6%, which is about 420,000. Okay, on that year, and they just receive 420 as a payment, they would just pay ordinary income tax on that. Okay, so it depends on what the interest. If it's interest that it's earned on top of the principal 7 million. Then it's ordinary income. If they dip into the principal, which they can, and they can go spend that, it's capital gains tax.
Are there any fees involved?
Oh yeah. We'll talk about fees. We charge millions of dollars. No, we'll walk through it. It's about 1.5% to close it, and about 1.5% recurring, unless you bring another financial advisor in, which could be as high as 2%. So we'll walk through that in a minute.
Pull money out.
There's no penalty for pulling money out. I mean, you'll just pay tax on it, right? And there's no exit fee for pulling money out. You just pay tax on it. So, but most of our clients like to pay the tax the second date of never. Because remember what this 2.8 is going on over here. This 2.8 is what? The government is charging you 0%. So Altai, if they're charging you 0%, when do you want to pay that loan back? Never, right? So I want to keep this 7 million in there, which includes this extra 2.8 at 0%. And then he says, go invest it in real estate. Go put in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Go live off the interest. Pay us ordinary income when you take the interest, right? That makes sense. If you dip into this principal, you'll pay some of this 2.8, right? but only in proportion to what you receive. But most of our clients will just keep the 7 million intact. They'll just live off the interest payments, right? And they'll pay tax as they receive small amounts. You follow so far?
Yeah. I'm guessing a lot of your clients do bonds as well.
Whatever they want. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really, we just customize it to everybody. You know, everyone's a little different, but there's some similarities. But let's walk through. I think that this is the best part. And this is why I started my company right here. Okay. So you guys or the client finds an apartment complex that used to be worth 13 million, but they waited a couple years to buy this, and now it's worth 13 million. Okay. What can they do? Well, in the meantime, we're in stocks, bonds, mutual funds. We sell out of a big chunk of those, and the money gets back into the bank. And by the way, it's in a bank. We use a bank. It's called DACA, Direct Access Control Agreement, or Deposit Account Control Agreement, meaning the funds don't move without their signature. Okay. So we sell out, let's say we put 5 million back into DACA, and the other 2 million is still in the marketplace. Well, guess what? They can form a brand new LLC where Don, and let's just say Don is single. Don is the managing member. Okay. And he gets immediately 80% of the LLC, but he puts up a 0 down payment because he's the sweat equity. He's the guy who found this $13 million deal, or you guys found it for him. And the silent partner puts the 5 million in here as the down payment. Okay. For what? It wants 20% with an 8% pref. But watch this. You go, well, Brett, it's only a 6 cap or whatever, right? That's okay, right? Because we're going to make up for this later on. But as you're paying back, remember what the note over here, it owes him 8. So it's paying 8 on the 5, which turns around and pays Don. Okay, so it's kind of like borrowing from himself, but he's not borrowing from himself. Okay, so he's borrowing, he's partnering in a JV
with the trust,
which owes him the 8%. Okay?
Yep.
Now he buys this. Guess what he gets? Remember what I said, like Netflix. Why is it like Netflix? What does he get? What does he get? A new depreciation schedule, right? Okay. Remember, he was fully depreciated before. So had he done this same deal in a 1031, 13 minus 7, $6 million depreciation schedule versus 13. So what would you rather have, Altai, 13 million or 6 million to depreciate?
13.
Got it. So do you see how the 1031 is like Blockbuster and the Deferred Sales Trust is like Netflix? If you don't, I might not be doing my job here, because this guy, remember, used to be worth 15 million, and had I done a 1031, I would have paid 2 million more, and I would have got an old depreciation schedule. Blockbuster. But since I use the Deferred Sales Trust, and since Altai, David, and Theo showed me how to do this with Brett, I bought it at 13, 2 million less, and I got a new depreciation schedule. And this is the part where you guys go, too good to be true. My mind's exploded. But thousands of closes now, 25-year track record, over a dozen no-change IRS audits. And it's actually really simple if you just take it in bite-sized pieces. So again, I'll ask you again, do you see how the 1031 is like Blockbuster and the Deferred Sales Trust is like Netflix?
I see.
Okay. Any questions here, guys?
David.
Yes. I mean,
you think you could describe the cycle here from Don to cash buyer to Deferred Sales Trust?
yeah, I could do that.
All right, do it. Let me hear it.
Yeah, Mr. Brett's explaining it pretty straightforward. So, all I gotta do is just tell them the same thing. So I think I'll be good.
You think you could do that right now?
Um,
I think
I'm definitely gonna look at.
rewatch this.
Yeah, I'm gonna rewatch this
Yeah.
after this, and
Yeah.
then yeah, I could present it.
That's awesome. No, this is good. This is good stuff. This is very exciting.
Okay. Awesome, guys. And by the way, I'm curious, you guys' track record, how long you guys been in the business, Altai and Theo, David, and how much you guys sold?
So I started back in 2014 after I graduated from UVA, and started the team, I guess, with my first hire, which was Justin Ferguson. He's my longest standing partner. We've done 125 transactions since then. And David and Theo on the phone right now are new to the firm and the team as of a month.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Love it.
Yeah.
Wow. 125 transactions since 2014. You guys are heavy hitters. I love that. And you did that with your kind of solo, and then now you're teaming up. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. It was about a year and a half of solo, after leaving my first mentor, which was also promoted to he was also promoted to manager.
Yeah.
And then so at that point, a year and a half solo, then Justin was the first hire, and from there we kept growing.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that. Well, very cool. We'll keep going here because I know there's probably some more questions. But real fast, we'll just do one more quick thing. Remember this seller, let's say you had a $5 million deal. You're just going to sell it to the trust for $5 million. And the trust is going to turn around and sell it for $5 million. So the trust has no gain, right? Because he bought and sold for the same price. And this cash buyer's lined up. He can have a lender. We don't care how he comes. He's come with the full amount. He's actually going to buy it from the trust. And the seller's going to do it because he's going to get a promissory note for $5 million. Okay. And he's going to be 100% financed, the zero down payment. The smoke's going to clear, and we're going to invest it. And we're no longer in a 1031. We're in 453. So we have unlimited time, new depreciation schedule, diversification, liquidity, out of debt. Pretty sweet. So we're going to keep going. All right, guys. So remember who this works for. Any of your clients who are high net worth, who have a primary home worth more than 1.5 million. Remember, don't forget that stuff, right? Because they could sell their primary home for $5 million. And guess what? Now there's a buy side commission opportunity because they have that liquidity. They can use in the Deferred Sales Trust to go buy a deal. So that's pretty cool, right? Business owner. One of the biggest car dealerships was an $80 million deal. Tech entrepreneurs. Lord William, I'm closing a $30 million deal for a tech entrepreneur in Central California. Dentists, veterinarians, optometrists, collectibles, artwork, cryptocurrency. It also works for real estate developers. A lot of developers will just sell, pay the tax, and go and use the money to develop more. Well, in this scenario, you could sell, defer the tax, and because it's not a 1031, we can use the funds to build ground up real estate, all tax deferred, right? So that's pretty sweet. Works for LLC, C Corps, S Corps. Really good for syndicators because a lot of syndicators will just pay tax. They'll own a deal, they will not 1031, and they'll just pay the tax and give all their investors back their money. Well, in our scenario, they can literally, we just did a $20 million deal in Vegas for two syndicators, and they had like 20 investors. And they did it for they did two trusts, one for the one for the other GP, and the rest of the people just paid their tax. They liked it so much that they did it again for a $16.4 million multifamily property in Arizona. And now they put those money in, and now they're buying. I just signed paperwork they're taking on a $20 million loan for an asset in Texas they're buying. So my point is it works really well for syndicators as well. Okay. This is an actual client of mine. I sold this multifamily property in Sacramento for $270,000 a unit. We got flat roofs to about $1,200 to $1,400 in rents, bullseye location, downtown, midtown Sacramento, but older property in the 60s, right? It had laundry room, no in-house or no in-unit washer dryer. And, but it was a nice property, but I mean, $270,000 a unit, pretty sweet. And they had a huge gain. We were going to 1031. And by the way, this guy on the left, his name's Steve. He grew up in a multifamily business with his family. They own 30 million in assets in Napa, California. And so he's been taught 1031 his whole life. And for the first time, he used the Deferred Sales Trust. Part of it was because his partner had to bail because one of his family members died, and their exchange property, he no longer had enough of a down payment to execute. So Steve used the Deferred Sales Trust. It saved basically their relationship, because otherwise Steve was left with hundreds of thousands of dollars of tax. So that's Steve. He's also on my podcast. You can hear him talk about his story. Okay. Here's a client of mine. His name's Glenn. He's out of Nevada. He's a transactional attorney, and he actually sold his own business and used the Deferred Sales Trust. And here are a few other notable closes that have gone by recently. The biggest one, $125 million deal in San Diego, commercial real estate. That one was audited as well. $26 million Newport Beach property. I told you about the $80 million car dealership, $47 million deals, business sale in Florida. And here are a few other ones that are under contract. All right, here's a client of mine, engineer at Google, really smart lady. And she was selling her home in Cupertino. She lived just a few miles from Apple headquarters, and she saw her house. She also owns multifamily properties. She saw her house value go through the roof, and kids are gone. She used it for her house. So hopefully you guys are catching on what this can provide for your client. And I like to say the transformational part, right? Most tax deferral strategies, they're transactional, meaning they solve maybe one or two of these things, but when the transformation happens is when you tie them all together. And hands down, nothing else can do this. Okay. Nothing else can do what this is going to do for your clients. Debt freedom, tax deferred, wealth diversified, right? They can put it into multiple product types and locations and multiple asset classes. Wealth liquid, if they want it to be, right? They keep 20% for sure, but the rest of it need to be liquid too. Time to enjoy their wealth, right? This is the transformational part. No more toilets, trash, or liability. But then you're not giving it all up to a Delaware for 10 years. They have the opportunity to grow their wealth at optimal timing, right? Buying back at a discount with a new depreciation schedule. And then the legacy wealth transfer, make it really seamless for their kids. Some of your clients, they have multiple kids, and it's kind of a headache to think about what's going to happen after they pass, because they will not be arguing about the estate. Well, why don't you make it very simple for them? They just sell now, tax deferred, right? And then it's all in the Deferred Sales Trust, and then just the income streams go to their kids, so they don't have to worry about that. That's pretty sweet. Okay. So the most important question your clients will ask, and probably you're asking, is how do I know this thing is legal? And how do I know my funds are protected? Okay. Step number one, or point number one, is track record. Thousands of successful deferred sales trust cases. Okay. Over 25 years, not one single issue with the IRS. The IRS is over a dozen times looked at it, audited it, not one change on any of the audits. We also have national, go ahead.
What's the code number again?
IRC 453 is the tax code for the 1920s. And then IRC 1031 would be for the 1031 tax code. So it's known as a seller carryback, right?
Okay.
So that's exactly what they said. They look at this thing and they go, oh, you guys are just doing an installment sale. Oh, you're being creative with this third-party trustee, but he's in it for business purpose. Yep. And it's commercially reasonable. Yep. And he's getting paid a fee. Yep. Okay. That all makes sense. Yep. They closed the book. 12 times that's happened. And then another 3 times they did formal audits where they literally said, we want to see everything. Give us the entire structure. Give us all the documents. Give us your clients. Give it us all. And that happened 3 times. All of those were no change audits. The last one was in 2019 in April. No change. Okay. So they're literally batting 1,000. So make sure whatever tax deferral strategy you're potentially bringing your clients, you want to ask kind of a series of questions. The first one is how many closes for how long? But the most important one is how many IRS audits have you, particularly with your clients, survived? Okay. Those are the most important. What were the outcomes? And also, is there any pending litigation? Because if you look some of this stuff up, you'll come across a thing called a monetized installment sale. And you're like, oh, that sounds pretty sweet. But when you start digging into it, you're like, oh, they're under IRS review right now. They don't indemnify their client, which is part number 2 here. They don't provide audit defense, which is also what we do is with Deferred Sales Trust. They've only been around for 5 to 7 years. And yeah, there's a lot of shaky ground there. So so don't be deceived and don't be tricked with ones that don't have we have a perfect track record. Okay. And that's part of why the tax attorneys provide audit defense at no additional charge. It's part of the one-time upfront fee for them. and they indemnify the client. Pretty amazing. Next question is protection of cash. How do I know the trustee, Brett, wakes up tomorrow and wants to be a bad guy and take the 7 million or whatever to Mexico? I can't. Why? Because the client must sign. The funds don't move without their signature. They can literally sell, pay the tax, take it to this bank. Then the funds don't move without their signature, or sell, use the deferred sales trust, save the 2.8 million, and then the funds don't move without their signature. So the same exact protections. Now, as a trustee, I have to sign as well. So it's a co-signature. And we also have the financial advisor, who I'm not the financial advisor. It's another step of keeping the funds separated. Okay. From, and we call it the balance of power. So we have the tax attorney, trustee, that's my role. And then the financial advisor. Okay. And then the client's in the middle, and the client must sign for deals, for money to move, and for deals to be invested into. Okay. So that is step number one. These next two secrets are secret number one. The next two secrets will be quicker. Okay. But it's secret number two: deferred sales trust, optimal timing, transformational exit plan, how to clone a proven wealth plan with capital gains tax solutions in less than 5 hours to gain more time, wealth, energy, and debt freedom without giving up control or protection of your cash. And so here's the plan, guys, is just to sell their asset at an all-time high, fund the deferred sales trust on the sidelines, invest in conservative portfolio of liquid investments, and then buy real estate at any time. Okay. Anytime that makes sense.
Well,
Now, maybe tomorrow.
Don't they give up a little bit of control if they have to have your signature too to act, I guess, move the money?
Think of it like a lender, and yeah, and the answer to your question is yeah, they do, because they need my signature. I'm a friendly trustee, and I want what they want, right? If they want to go jump off a cliff and to put it all into Bitcoin, we're going to say, sorry, that doesn't a part of our structure. Here, take all of the 7 million and go jump off a cliff, right? But most of our clients want real estate, which we love, want conservative portfolios, which we love. And remember, we can set these notes for 10 years. I didn't tell you this, actually. 8, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We can set them for very short term. So if they're not happy for any reason, they can just get their money and pay their tax. But literally none of my clients have canceled, right? You can talk to them, but you're right. We do need to maintain this signature, because if I didn't have this signature, guess what? It's like they just sold it to their own trust, which they own. And if they owned it, then it would be taxable. In this scenario, they do not own the trust. They own the promissory note that's owed to them. And therefore this works. So does that make sense? That's a good question.
It makes sense. Now, hypothetically, if they did own the trust, or maybe like one of their relatives, what if someone's relative own it's taxable?
Yeah. So third party unrelated trustee. So the biggest thing that people face is this. They say, well, let my nephew do it, or let my son do it, or let my brother do it, or then they be the trustee. That's where the integrity of this falls apart. So it literally has to be, I cannot be related to the person, right? I got to be third party.
To 453?
Yeah, this is in order to make the deferred sales trust a non-taxable. 453 is just an installment sale. But when we mix it with the trust, it's called a deferred sales trust. And then we have certain guardrails that we have to stay within. And here's another way to think about it. You have an IRA or you use a 1031. Those need to be third party unrelated. Okay. You can't have your own IRA company, right? And put your own stuff into it. You can't have your own 1031. It has to be third party unrelated. So think of it like you're sending it to your own QI company. Like the deferred sales trust is kind of like, it's kind of like your QI company. I mean, you don't own it, but you get all the interest. Instead of the QI company getting all the interest over the 180 days, you're getting all of that interest. And then you can put it where you want to, when you want to. Now, it's not freezing it for a frozen 1031 and then just go somewhere else. But you need third party unrelated. You have to sign. I'm like a custodian, right? That's kind of like my role. The money is never commingled in my account or my other clients' accounts. It's its own separate trust account with its own bank account that they must sign for. So they have all the rights and protections of a lender. This is why lenders will lend you guys $15 million on a deal, because they know they have the first. If you were to sell that deal, they're not concerned that you're going to take all 30 million. Let's say it's a $30 million deal. They know that. What's that?
What bank do you guys use?
So we use a bank out of Southern California. It's like a $16 billion or $11 billion bank out of Irvine. And we'll introduce you to them. That's one bank we use. And then the other one, sometimes everyone just goes directly to TD Ameritrade. And then TD Ameritrade is the largest bank in the world now.
Cool.
All right. So then remember, they're going to have 24/7 access to view the funds online. Funds don't move without their signature. Okay. And we're going to map this out for them. So step number 2, sell their asset. Step number 3, fund the trust. Very simple. Okay. Step number 4, enjoy their wealth. Give more if they want to. Remember, 10-year notes, typically 8% net of all recurring fees, but that depends on their risk tolerance. And they can renew each after each term for as long as they want, pass it on to their kids. They can cash out whenever they want, although they pay the tax when they do. So again, what we used to have to do, they used to have to stay in their primary home, not sell a business, not sell their real estate, overpay for a 1031, more time, energy, toilets, trash, employees, and liability. They used to have to become the lender for a single buyer where their collateral is just their original asset, which they're not diversified, not liquid. And that buyer is most likely going, or that initial borrower is going to refinance in 3 to 5 years anyways, and then it's short term and they're going to have to pay the tax. So that's why most people don't do a traditional seller carryback. They know it's 100% legal. They just don't do it because it's typically short in nature, where we're taking the best of the legal part and we're mixing it and making it the Netflix, because you can go for as long as you want. And your collateral is not tied to one single person, one borrower. It's tied to Netflix, Amazon, Google, Apple, the biggest companies in the world, with some of the top money managers in the US. So my business partner, his name is Robert. He played for the 49ers. He played with Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, won a Super Bowl ring in Miami, and became a financial advisor about 25 years ago. And he's part of the Dream Team. Okay. We also have another gentleman. He's a former PIMCO alumni, and PIMCO is one of the biggest money managers in the world. And they're also part of our Dream Team to help manage the money. So you're not just getting Brett, you're getting multiple people to help make this all work and make you guys look great as Marcus and Millichap agents, and help you win more business. Okay. Okay. So it's a new way. So hopefully you're seeing this thing is transformational. It's amazing. That is secret number 2. And this is the last secret. My number 1 wealth building hack: how to get your deferred sales trust to work in your favor and become an investment and not an expense. The biggest objection you're going to receive, besides like, who's this trustee, and we'll have to work through that, is, well, this thing costs ongoing fees. Yes, it does. It costs about 1.5, and then to set up, and about 1.5 recurring. This is my client, Peter. He's a real estate broker himself, and he had 18 units in Sacramento. This is the one I was telling you about. And he goes, I just wanted freedom. I wanted time. I was just tired of this thing. I'm driving 2 to 3 hours, about 2 to 3 days a week, fighting traffic. So he sold, got out of debt, deferred $550,000 of tax. But one of the things we're looking at for him and for other clients is these tax brackets. So when you receive income, guess what? You're in different brackets. The unique part about the deferred sales trust is you don't have to receive the income. In other words, you can let it compound like an IRA would, and therefore you can drop in brackets. So this is how the deferred sales trust can become an investment rather than an expense. Because let's just say you had a total household income of $440,000 and $200,000 was coming from an investment property that was fully depreciated, so you had no way to offset that. Well, guess what? If you roll that $7 million asset, let's say, into the trust, and then that $200,000 interest that it's earning, you let it compound on top of the trust, you see how the 440 could drop to 240? You guys see that?
Yep.
So then you have about $70,000 of tax savings. Okay. Because you help them get into a lower bracket. And then fast forward, let's say this other 240 of income, they retire from something, then they can turn the spigot on the trust and start receiving income. Or let's say they relocate it out of Virginia to like Florida and establish residency there. Guess what? If they start taking income in that year, or in that state, what happens? It's a zero income tax state. You see that?
That's big.
Do you see how the DST can become an investment and not an expense if you just use just one of these things I'm showing you right here? And that's the first one. Here's the second one. And this one is probably going to blow your minds. Ty, do you have clients that are worth more than 22 million married or about 12 million single?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you familiar with the estate tax, Altai?
Yeah.
What is it?
It's the tax on their estate when it passes, correct?
You got it. So let's say one of your clients right now, Altai, is worth $52 million. and you call them tomorrow and say, hey, what's your net worth? I think it's like 52 million, right? And you have a good relationship with them. So it can be kind of a sensitive question. So, but they say, yeah, 52 million. All right. How much is that inside your taxable estate? All of it. I haven't moved any of it out. Wow. Are you familiar with the death tax? What's that? Well, it's about 40% on anything above 22 million. It's about 23 right now with the inflation. But let's just use 22 for this example. You know, anything above 22 million is going to be hit with a 40% death tax. It has nothing to do with the stepped up basis, has nothing to do with capital gains tax. Some people get that confused. They think, oh, well, let's get a stepped up basis, right? And they won't have, no. This is separate. So 30 million is still left inside their taxable estate if they're to die tomorrow. Well, what's 30 million times 40%? That's $12 million. So imagine they own $52 million worth of real estate and they're older. If they do nothing and they die, yeah, their kids get a stepped up basis to 52 million. But this $12 million is due within 6 months of the estate passing. So the intent is to get it outside the taxable estate. The challenge is your clients can't get it out fast enough without giving it all the way to charity. The solution, the Deferred Sales Trust. We call it the Deferred Sales Trust Plus. Okay, it's a little nuance there. But in one single deal tomorrow, let's say it was a $30 million apartment complex, you could sell it and you can move it outside of their taxable estate. Okay. So Altai, I want to make sure you got that because this might be worth more business to you guys in the future than anything else.
I do.
So walk it through so I make sure you got it.
So as they're getting older, right, and approaching that age, which, 80, 85, that's definitely the time. They're going to want to take a considerable amount out of that 52 million out, put it into a trust, and not get hit with $12 million of estate tax if their estate was worth 52 mil.
You nailed it. You nailed it. Just a mathematical equation. Like you spend 5 minutes with them walking through this. And guess what? In 2025, guys, this 23 million married is likely to expire, meaning it's going to drop back down to likely 12. And if you're an individual, down to 6. Okay. So this exemption is no longer 22 in this scenario. The exemption would be half of the 22.
Those are going to be great problems to have.
Yeah. Great problems to have, but also a great opportunity to help people give to, to causes they believe in without being forced to give it to them. They can still give it to their kids.
Oh yeah.
They could still give.
I think that everything is great about this. What I see is the biggest objection that I'm expecting is the co-control, right? You're not taking control away from them, but you're partnering with them in a way.
Yeah, secure, like a lender, right? So if you get a multifamily property and the lender says you need fire insurance, right? Altai?
And you can do a partial, right? You can't do a partial with this, can you?
You can do a partial 1031 and a partial deferred sales trust. You can do partial opportunity zone and a partial Delaware statutory trust and a partial deferred sales trust.
On that partial and then put the rest in the trust.
Yeah, you can do partial. Yeah, we can bring it up. And here's the other part on the control part. Let me help you overcome that.
What happens at the end? What happens at the end of that 10-year term on the installment sale?
Well, the balloon payment is set to pay you.
You reset it. You already.
Yeah, you can. It's like a refinance. You just say, let's refinance and let's push that balloon payment for another 10 years. But let me also answer this too. You can because we've had this same question. Like, well, how do I know if I get in with Brett, I don't like him? I'm stuck in this thing for 10 years. We're like, no. We can structure it for a 5-year term, a 3-year term, a 12-month term, right? We can structure it where everything is coming due in 12 months. You have interest only payments for whatever, or no payments for whatever. And at the end of 12 months, you're going to pay the tax. So like contractually, you're in control. Like it's my note's coming due, right? That's the first thing. And then you can just renew for another year, renew for another year. Most of our clients, they're like, oh, this is good. This is good. The second thing is the note's in default day one. It owes 8%. We haven't earned 8%. So you could also just say, look, it's in default. Where's my 8%? It's not earning my 8. Well, we just put it in there. Okay, let me pull all my money out. Cash me out. So does that make sense? You actually have legal control through being a lender. It's not like an ownership control. You put the lender hat on, but guess what? The smartest, most sophisticated, rich people in the world are bankers.
You could always foreclose on it.
You can always foreclose on it, right? Those laws are stronger. I think the strongest even to ownership laws as a lender. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's keep going here and then we'll finish some more questions. Remember, you have partners that want to separate, but they don't know how to get out without getting the tax. One wants a 1031, one says, I'll never 1031 ever again. And they're just stalemated. You bring in the deferred sales trust and you accomplish both of their goals, and they could separate their partnership. They no longer have to be in the same money commingled. It's their own trust and their own tax deferral, doing their own deals. This is big for you guys in commercial real estate, okay? So just look for any of the partnership struggles and say we have a good solution for that. Again, this is what happened with my clients. They had a partnership struggle. He bailed on his other one for the 1031 and it saved their relationship. Okay. So investment real estate advantage. Remember, this is how we're getting the deferred sales trust to pay for itself. Remember, no timing guidelines. You can purchase at a discount. Just be patient. New depreciation schedule. Amazing. Huge. Plus you can use cost segregation after that. Remember, debt-free. You can invest in multiple commercial real estate syndications of your own or with partners. You diversify. And then it can rescue or save a 1031. So you guys should never walk out of a meeting where somebody says, hey, Altai, David, Theo, I'd love to sell my property, but guess what? Get me that exchange lined up first and then I'll do it. Or I don't want to do it because I don't want to be pressured by the time. This does not take one of your positions. Most people do the 3 property rule, identifying 3 properties within 45 days and going to close on 1, 2, or 3. The deferred sales trust does not take away from that, does not replace one of those. It's completely separate. It's not a property. Now you do need to work with the qualified intermediary. We have one in New York that I would refer you guys to, okay, to give you both options, to give your client both options. You guys should never do a 1031 a client with an exchange company that won't give you both options because you never know if the deal is going to blow up. Altai, have you ever had a 1031 blow up?
Yeah.
Okay. So boom, how much did they pay in tax when it blew up?
I mean, I've seen millions of dollars paid in tax over.
Yeah. So what I'm saying, this would rescue that and it would save them millions of dollars every single time. Okay. I think we've saved 8 or 9 failed 1031 exchanges in the past few months alone. I just did a $7.9 million deal, saved the failed 1031 exchange, and we saved her $2.6 million of tax. It was a rental property on the beach in Santa Cruz, south, just called Aptos, just south of Santa Cruz, California. She's in her 70s, $2.6 million of savings. Okay, we rescued a failed 1031. So should you guys ever have a failed 1031 ever again now?
No.
All right.
Hey, Brett, if you were, say your clients determined to go through with the 1031 just because it seems to work for them, is there any problem with setting up a DST as a fallback? Like, is there any fees with the setup?
Nope.
No.
We don't charge unless they do the deal. We're going to cheer you on. Go find that 1031. Hey, go make that 5 cap deal make sense. You know what I mean? Like, we're being a little facetious, but hey, if they find a deal, that's their great. But if they can't find it, we're here for you. We don't charge a dime unless they do the deal. Okay. And I'm going to get into the fees here in just a second. So let me ask you this. Okay. So Theo, Altai, and David, I want you to ask yourself this. If you just modeled what works already, we've already proven the structure. We've already blazed the trail. I've already gone through it all. Okay. So taking off all of the false beliefs that hopefully have been overcome so far. But if you just set up a call with your trusted CPA or your client's trusted CPA an attorney, and with us, Capital Gains Tax Solutions, and the legal team, the DST legal team, to confirm this thing works and is legal. That's just step number one. That's all you did. And then if step number two, if you then just were to sit down with a financial advisor, then my business partner would be the one here in this scenario, and mapped out where the funds would be invested and how the risk was accounted for. And then step number three, you're to sit down, and by the way, also meet the bank, and make sure the funds don't move without the signature. If you're there to sit down with me and mapped out how the DST is actually an investment and not an expense, do you guys see how you could actually do this yourself, or your clients could actually do this? Do you see it now?
I do.
Okay. So let me ask you a question. Okay. This is the last thing. I want you to give me 10 more minutes to make you an offer. Okay. And I know you feel like this little girl. I have a daughter about her age. Her name's Savannah, but this is not my daughter. But it feels like a fire hose. Okay. So can I get 10 more minutes and then ask you guys a question and then answer the rest? Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. I want to give you instant access to all the media, all the training, all in one place. I want to give you my sales script. I want to give you my funnels. I want to give you my email campaigns. I want to give you access to me on the podcast. I want to give you opportunity to have me on a workshop just like this with your clients. Okay. All to help them escape feeling trapped by capital gains tax. Also, if your clients were to do deferred sales trust, what do they get? They get white glove CPA tax attorney access. They can bring their trusted CPAs to get education and blessing. Now we'll ask them to sign an NDA, but once they do that, we're going to give them that education, which they're going to thank you for, and they're going to bring you more clients. This is what we found. Okay. We're going to give, the law firm is going to provide lifetime indemnification, and they have over $20 million E&O insurance policy, which they've never had to use. They have a perfect track record with this. Clients can get transparent 24/7 access to view their accounts, real-time online updates. They're going to get the DACA SunWest bank account we talked about. Escrow has all the funds all the time, and they don't move unless the funds are signed for, or the instructions are signed for, and go to TD Ameritrade or go to a next real estate deal. They're going to get white glove seamless transaction coordination. I'm going to help you. I'm a commercial real estate broker. I'm going to help you guys do this with escrow, with the parties, okay? White glove professional banker direct access customer support. His name is Michael. He's with SunWest Bank. Professionally prepared tax return service. I have that. We used to have a 55-year-old CPA firm. They kind of got like a Blockbuster. They're a little bit tired, so we actually got a new one, like a Netflix. They're pretty fast and they're amazing. They're out of like Silicon Valley. White glove seamless LLC formation. If they wanted to do that, it's a little extra for them. If they wanted to buy a new deal, access to some of the top wealth advisors in the world. Really, we have some of the best. They're amazing. Lifetime IRS audit defense with the #1 installment sale firm in the nation. That's the people who do this, my business partners. And again, they have 100% successful track record. And then if they wanted to get with other sponsors or other deals, you guys probably have that. We'd point them towards them, but we do have commercial real estate syndicators across the nation we work with. So again, who this works for: primary homeowners, business owners, collectibles, artwork, investment real estate, C Corps, LLCs, partnerships, LPs. It works for all types of high net worth clients. You can see why people or clients could potentially be paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to set up a deferred sales trust for them. These are just a few of my clients here. I know this sounds too good to be true. Don't worry. We have a reference list as much as you want to talk with. In fact, one of the best stories is for a gentleman who sold his financial advising business. He's with LP Financial. And his wife was a treasury attorney, and he was approached with the deferred sales trust. He was in the financial industry for 30 years. And he looks at this thing, he's like, this is too good to be true. He goes, but I have an ace in my pocket. It's my wife. She's a treasury attorney for the Secretary of State. He brought it to her. She's like G4 or G5, one of the highest you can get for where she was at. And she took it in 48 hours. Maybe back up. He said, honey, if you say no to this, we will not touch it. If you say yes to this, I will sell my practice in the next 90 days and we'll save 10 to 15 years of my working career. 48 hours later, he goes, Brett, she came home from work. 2 words changed my life. She says, it's legit. He says, great. He sold it 90 days. And that was over 12 years ago. You can talk to him. Your clients can talk to him. It's an amazing story. And he goes, Brett, we would never have done something. Well, we would have thought it would put our legacy at risk with her with her treasury attorney for 20 years with the United States government, and myself with the business practice that I've built for 30 years. This is millions of dollars that we're talking about here. And he goes, I've never been happier. Anyone wants to call me, they can call me. Plus, we want whoever is going to come here to bring their trusted advisors to speak with us for the due diligence. No cost on our side for the due diligence, okay? Literally, it's 100% no cost unless your client chooses to use the Deferred Sales Trust and the deal actually closes. So up until the last minute, they can say no for whatever reason, no hard feelings. They could find that 1031, no hard feelings. We will be prepared on the next one. Okay, we take all the pressure off. So you can get started today, about 1.5% closing cost that goes to the tax attorney. And then it's about 1.5 to 2% recurring for the ongoing management of the net proceeds into the trust, depending on the size of the deal, right? If it goes higher, we have a little bit lower, depending on, we have the whole fee schedule, but you're going to get all of this, right? It could be worth easy $125,000 with all the stuff I talked about, but it's $1 million deal, 15 grand to start, about 15 on the recurring fee. Okay. Now for you guys, if you guys want to get our coaching, you can go to experttaxsecrets.com. This has actually been bumped up to $497. So sorry, it's not $197 anymore. We had too much. We had to go to $497, but it's cool. I just give everything all for $497. This used to be like a lower amount for just not as much, but that's it. You guys have questions? Oh, real quick. Here's a fee breakdown. Let's say it's a $10 million sale. Let's say they had a zero basis. They had a $10 million gain. They're looking at about a $4 million liability. They could pay that and net $6 million, or they could use the Deferred Sales Trust and net about $9.85 million. So that'll save them about $3.85 million. So I appreciate you guys, and I'll open it up for questions now.
David, Theo, you guys got any questions?
No, I'm good, but I'm definitely gonna have to re-listen to it in some of the parts. Yeah, but yeah, overall it was great education. It's definitely gonna help us with the team, and yeah, I look forward working with you in the future, Mr. Brett.
Yeah, Brett, this was great. I don't know, it kind of opened my eyes. I think it opens a lot of opportunities and helps a lot of people that feel like they're in a stuck situation. So I'm excited to rewatch this and just kind of jot down all the notes again.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. Well, I appreciate it. And then how about Altai? Anything else there?
No, I thought it was a great presentation, man. You're a sharp guy.
All right.
It was a pleasure to listen to it.
Awesome. Well, you guys, it's my pleasure. I'm here to help you. Happy to help. And so I will send this recording to you guys. I'm also going to upload it to YouTube so you guys can share it as well, if that's cool with you guys. You guys don't mind that, right?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Okay. So we'll do that. And anything I need to help you, you know where to find me. And let's go help a lot of people together. I appreciate you. Okay.
Thanks, Brett. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Brett.
Thanks, guys.
I guess.